Minecraft's easy, right? Just placing down a few cubes on top of some other cubes. But how do you make it look good? You know, like this. Or maybe this. Or even this. Or maybe even this. The answer is simple, my friends. Details. Today, I'm going to show you how to make 25 or more details you can include in your Minecraft world that will turn your world from this into something that will make your friends jealous and your heart sore. And it's all just the details. And I'm going to teach you how right now. Let's go. I love creating in Minecraft, but what I love most is making a build pop and look like it's realistic and full of life. It's all in the detail, and these tips are going to help you transform your Minecraft worlds to a whole new level. And it's really not that difficult, I promise, although the results make it look like it is. Let's crack on with building tip number 1. And number 1 is the humble bush. I've chosen bushes as the first one because they can be the basis of so many other of the details moving forwards. And they're definitely the most simple to build, but adding them changes everything. Now bushes can be small, I mean really small, maybe just 5 or 6 lumps like that, and that's the perfect bush. Or you can make them a lot bigger and randomly place your leaves all over the place. But what's important is adding just a little bit of variation and texture. Bringing in different coloured leaves. Here I've got some spruce leaves in amongst some oak leaves. And then also putting in these flowering azalea leaves as well. Makes for a great touch. That's now a good bush. And the bushes really come alive when you mix them in with something else. Which brings us to number 2, rocks. In real life, you see rocks everywhere, sticking out the ground, cascading down hillsides, around waterfalls, or as the primary structure of the edge of a shore or a cliff face. And again, they can be as simple or as complicated as you need them to be. Build yourself up a little primary structure first using some blocks, then bring in a few steps, put a step on the side, bring in a step to the side there, pop in a slab. Mossy works, mossy's really nice. Bring in some more step. Perhaps another slab coming on top of this. Make sure you raise up the height with a little bit more like that. And before you know it, you start to build up a rock that looks pretty decent. And then when you add in a little bit of the bushes as well, just in the cracks, making sure you leave a bit of grass because grass is fairly natural, and pop bits there. Differentiate your colours a little bit with different coloured grass and bushes. And you've got yourself a rock there that looks pretty decent. And I made that one up as I went along in a couple of seconds. And they really do become super effective when you use them as a shoreline. Look at that, they look just fantastic. And there are 2 of the most basic elements, and we'll be coming back to them because they form the basis of some of the more complex details we're going to do in a minute. Which brings us to the next one. Water features. And I've got a few different styles I'm going to share with you. First up, a tiny cliffside spring. This one's only got 5 water blocks in it, but the whole feature itself is about 9 by 9 blocks. And it's made using the same technique I showed you a minute ago for the rocks, except this time I've put in some coarse dirt, I've put in some sugar cane on top of that dirt, I've placed some drip leaf in there, a few lily pads, some light inside using those sea pickles, and the odd flower as well. It just makes it look really natural and part of the environment. And when you surround it with bushes, it looks even better. The combination of the green of the bush and the grey of the rocks looks fantastic, especially when you accent it with flowers. Getting a little bit bigger, we can move on to ponds. Now this pond is much larger than that little water feature that we've just seen, but principally it's exactly the same thing. We've surrounded it with a bit of rock. I've used quite a lot of slabs just so as it doesn't become overpowered. We've still got flowers, we've still got coarse dirt, we've still got sea pickles, we've even still got sugarcane going all the way around it. And what I've also got is this green glass with the brown candles on top to act as bulrushes in amongst these lily pads. And you can make these as big or small as you like. And when you add those rocks and bushes, they look super realistic. I love this style of water feature, but you can expand on it even more by making it the prominent feature of an area rather than merging into the background. This one's the centre of my town square. Principally, it's really similar to the last one, but actually the rocks around the outside are in a far more uniform type of design with very little green, just the odd little bit of bush just to accent the colour. And I've surrounded it with greys and browns and all sorts of other colours that kind of offset this, but make sure that it stands out. It's also much shallower, so it's only got one high seagrass in it. The bulrushes are all the same height, and the sea pickles, well, there's just more of them. But what it does is add a different dimension to that town's square that maybe a fountain or something like that wouldn't do. But we've still kept it really natural. Although if you wanted to, you could definitely make it more formal by making it a perfect circle or a rectangle or something like that. So that's ponds, but there is another type of water feature you could include. A waterfall. Now all a waterfall really is a cascade of water. It's how you get it to cascade that makes the difference. If you include the tiny little source bit at the top, that's coming from a spring underground. Let's say it has got 1, 2, 3 and then a 4th stage. So it's 4 stages before it then links up and goes all the way out into the sea. Each stage does use the rock technique that we used at the beginning, and we use the shape of those rocks to make sure the water goes where we want it to go. Because it involves moving water, I'm using quite a lot of mossy cobblestone, and I'm surrounding it with plenty of plant life as well. Flowers and ferns, lots of bushes, strategically placed sugarcane, and my bulrushes made out of green glass panes and brown candles are at different levels. And I've put a pathway up both sides of it so people can enjoy it at every single level. This one came out really well. I got some drip leaf in there and some lily pads as well. And you can turn that into a real grotto. If you wanted to, you could put a cave behind the waterfall. Maybe a smuggler's cave. That's a great idea. I won't even count that in my 25. You can have that one for free. There's another nice quick water based feature you can use just along here. And this one doesn't take nearly as much space as the other ones do. It's a well right in the middle of an opening in the town. This one's got a lot of room around it, but you definitely don't need to give it that much room. And it's really quite simple. It's basically just a 3x3 square of blocks with each side having one step on it. On top of those, we've put 4 blocks on each side and a wall between them. We've got fence posts, we've got slabs above the fence post, then we've got a chain in the middle with a cauldron. That cauldron full of water, unsurprisingly, because that's the bucket for the well. We've then lit it up and that is a well. It looks really good. Very simple though. And again, if you want to stick a little bit of green on it, maybe it'll make a difference to you. Maybe your world needs a bit more green. You know me, I love green. And speaking of green, if you've got big rivers or lakes right by your base, you should definitely make sure that where any water from your base meets it has got a different kind of texture and feel. This is the waterfall I was just at. It's got a little stream feeding into that lake, and that lake has got a lagoon right on the outside of it. We've edged up the lagoon with that rock technique we used at the beginning. I did tell you that using rocks and bushes like this is going to transform your world. I really wasn't kidding. We've also put some small rocks out in the lagoon. It's quite likely there'll be a few outcrops. Make sure you spread lily pads really broadly around that entrance and thin them out as they get further away. And remember, where there's lily pads, there's bulrushes, green glass, brown candle. It's a really great technique. Make sure there are loads of different levels though, because this is more natural. And small drip leaves are perfect for this kind of thing. Make sure it doesn't get too deep too quickly. This is a lagoon. It's going to be shallow for a little while. And make sure you put plenty of texture under that water. Gravel, coarse dirt, stick in some slabs every now and again, especially the mossy ones. They look brilliant. And the total effect on the landscape is really awesome. I recommend you do this kind of thing. It makes your islands look fantastic. That's enough watery ones for now, but let's do something that's kind of vaguely associated with water. If you want to cross water, it's a bridge. Look, and I happen to be on one now. This one's a really simple rickety bridge. It's all made out of extinguished campfires, trapdoors and slabs. And it looks like it's on a diagonal, but in reality it's going straight. It's just longer on one side than it is the other. And by offsetting with these wooden posts, it creates the illusion that it's diagonal. Diagonal building in Minecraft takes away that blocky nature just a little bit because it's not all north, south, east, west. If we go slightly sideways as well, it makes sure that we've got lines going in every direction. This is a great example. At the end of this pathway, I've got another bridge which is also on the diagonal, except this one is on an absolutely 45-degree diagonal, and that means that all of these fence posts here are all on the straight line if you look down them. Again, different diagonals give different lines to the world and make it not look quite so blocky. This one's a little bit bigger and a little bit wider, incorporating fence posts, barrels, lighting, all that kind of thing. And I've put trapdoors on top of the wood, specifically oak trapdoors for that crisscross effect. And by mixing in oak, spruce and extinguished campfires, it still looks a little bit worn, but not as worn as that bridge that we were at a moment ago. This could still take a lot of traffic, and also not just foot traffic. Things like carts, etc. could come across and feed your island with resources. But make sure when you do bridges, you put a bit of life around them, some lily pads, some bushing. It really makes a difference. And bridges don't just go across rivers and the sea. You can have suspension bridges that go up in the air. And these do need to be really rickety. I love a good suspension bridge, me. Let me just explain this one to you. Again, we're using different coloured slabs, trapdoors and extinguished campfires. And we're using chains as ropes, with the chains being attached to grindstones, which gives it a much more engineered look. But what's really important with the suspension bridge is it needs to make sense. This one starts and finishes on the same level, so it's really important that the left hand side is symmetrical with the right hand side. It wouldn't dangle any differently. If one side comes higher than the other, so for example I connected it up here, then there would be more bridge on this side than on this side, and it would dangle asymmetrically. So think about how you're connecting your bridges up to both sides of your canyons. But as an additional feature to this cove, I think it looks brilliant. When we're looking at ponds earlier, we're at the town centre. So I just want to take you to the town centre again, because there are some other details there that I'd really like to share with you. Specifically, market stalls. Now, market stalls don't just have to be aesthetic. You can actually use them as your trader hall. This librarian here wants to give me a Curse of Vanishing book. Dude, why would I want you to give me a Curse of Vanishing book? Let's re-roll you and see what we get. Let's pop you there. You need to pick that up, please. Bone of arthropods. That's not really any better, is it? But, you know, I'll leave you alone for now. And you can make these market stalls as big or small as you want, and maybe with one or more villagers. This is another one of a very similar size. This one's a fisherman. What are you going to make? Bucket of cod. Really? That's what you're going to trade with me? I'm going to forget you as well. Inside here, we've actually got another fisherman. He's going to give me a bucket of cod as well. You fishermen, you're rubbish traders. We've got another one here that's a bit of a corner plot, and inside here we've got another fisherman who actually wants to give me emeralds for coal and stuff. See, that's much more interesting. What about you? No? You're still fish oriented, are you? Market stalls are a really good way of bringing colour into your world. I've used blues, reds, greens, pinks, browns, yellows, oranges, all over the place, and it doesn't matter what colour you use, because any colour makes sense with a market stall. You can match up your wool with your banners as well, hang banners all the way around your stall to give it a more draped look. Every village needs trading, right? So bring your market stalls in. And while we're in the town centre, we need to add details to that as well. You're going to need little water barrels. You're going to need all kinds of goods that are going to be trading like these. You're going to need other barrels such as here. That is a barrel that's got snow in it. I don't know, maybe it's milk. You can pretend, I don't care. It's up to you, it's your world. But there's all sorts of extra details that you just plonk around in your world. There's another water next to some diamonds, because that's where you'd find diamonds. Gold, that looks like that's been dropped off. We can add in a little bit of a campfire there with some logs. All sorts of different details that you can increase the value around your market square, because a market square with just market stalls and nothing else in it hasn't got anything to trade. So make it real. And as you walk away from your market stalls, well, you need to know which direction to go in, don't you? So, well, that looks like that probably needs a few paths, and paths are another way that you can really increase the production value of your world. And what's really important is that not all paths are created equal. They need to be very different depending where they are. The path in around the market has got cobble, coarse dirt, gravel, path blocks, but it's also got mud, because mud implies that it's been well trodden, and some compressed mud as well. As we come away from the market, we stop having that mud, because that's maybe not going to be as walked on, but we still have a little bit of compressed mud, but it turns into mostly coarse dirt, gravel and path blocks. And then as you get a little bit more wild, it becomes really just gravel and path blocks with almost no dirt whatsoever. But paths make your world real, so make sure you give them the love that they deserve. And if you don't want to come across any mobs, you also need to light them up. So this is the next thing, lighting. And the first lighting idea is dead easy. A few fence posts, lantern on top, but you've got a fence that actually runs along the side of your road and gives light for 15 blocks in every direction. And often in a town, this kind of lighting could be enough on its own, but if you've not got a path, then maybe you don't want a fence to put next to it. And that's where your moss carpet comes in handy, because underneath the moss carpet, you can hide all kinds of lighting blocks. Glowstone, under here we've got a frog light, and over here we've got the telltale glow of a sea lantern. Or maybe you're right in the middle of a town and your paths have merged into one big mass. You haven't got a path to put a fence next to. You're going to need something else. Lampposts. And you can create different styles of lampposts to suit your need. This one, I've got a hanging lamppost across this entire island because it kind of suits the theme. But you can change up your designs to suit whatever purpose you need. You could even just put them onto wall studs on somewhere like a harbour. What a fantastic segue, because that brings us to harbours. Now that could be as simple as something like a beach with a boat on it. Doesn't get much more simple than that, although I'm not going to use up one of the 25 with this. This one's a freebie. I mean proper harbours. Like this one. And the thing about harbours is it's loads of details all stuck together really. Yet you could say we've got a complex pattern on the floor. It's not really, just a little bit of stone with some cobble and some andesite all mixed in, and as we go up towards the water we've got some green in there as well. That's not one either, that's another freebie. But the next non-freebie is the wood pile. 3 along the bottom, 1 at the top, and then put a rail over the top of that. I like to use activator rails, but you don't have to. It looks like they've got little points of contact there, kind of bolting them down to the quay, and that's a really simple way to make it look like you've got something to ship across on one of the boats. And then you've got barrel piles. The fishermen, they're optional. And you can change up some of the barrels for ore blocks, maybe you can change them for hay bales, maybe you can lob in some chests in there as well. Doesn't matter how you design it. You do all kinds of different ones together and it gives a good random selection of goods that are being shipped away. If you've got a big harbour, you need a lot of these, and if it's only a little harbour, just put a few around. You can also fill cauldrons up with stuff, whether it's lava, water, or even powdered snow, which I suppose you could pretend was milk or something. Because who's shipping snow? Pop them in a cauldron and put trapdoors, particularly spruce trapdoors, around the outside. They look like open barrels. And there wouldn't be a lot of point in a harbour if you didn't have any ships. And if it's a busy port, you want quite a few. Whether it's a trireme style boat, a couple of sails look good, but they're fairly small 1 or 2 man ships. A larger merchant ship, this one's got 3 sails and it's a little bit wider. Or an even larger frigate with its sail billowing outwards. Use banners on that wall sail for a little bit more movement. And the bigger ships can have a downstairs stock area as well. All of them are made up of slabs, blocks and stairs, just made into a ship's hull, with a mast and cross beams just lobbed in the middle. In the series where I'm making this world, there's a link in the description below if you'd like to go and have a look. Oh, and I'm giving the world away to all my patrons as well. Go see the video for details. I go into a little bit more detail on how to build these boats. And don't forget to lob a villager in a boat. Maybe they're just going fishing in the harbour. But you couldn't load all of these heavy goods onto these ships manually. You're going to need some mechanics. Maybe it'll be a good idea to have a crane. And I'm going to show you a couple of crane designs that you could use. First up, there's the dock crane. 4 strong feet fixed to the harbour. A counterbalance weight with lights. A strong angular arm made out of steps and slabs holding up something. Doesn't matter what it's holding up, just make it hold something up. And use grindstones to connect up the chains. They look so much more effective. And don't forget to put in a villager to drive it. Maybe put in a blast furnace so you get an armourer, because that uniform fits perfectly for a crane driver. And make sure you put some lights on it. I like to use these redstone torches. I think they work as neon lights, showing that there's a crane working on the harbour. And over on the other side of the island, we've got another crane. This one working in the quarry. It's a similar design, but I've added far more iron because I feel as if this is going to be using a lot more strength to lift the oars from the ground. And it's also got a slightly slimmer body just to emphasise the fact that all of the strength is going into the arm. But don't forget your counterbalance. I've used redstone blocks covered with iron trapdoors just to give that hint of colour. And again, a driver, and make it so they can't get out. And strap in whatever it is you're lifting up with the rails using the same technique that we used on the logs just a couple of minutes ago. So there's your cranes, but the next one is the quarry that this crane is working on. And what's important about a quarry is it's not just a hole in the ground. This thing's been dug out to texture the sides. And it's probably been around for a while, so make sure that the plants are cascading into it. And definitely make sure there's somewhere for the crane to put what it's lifting out onto, like that platform. Ideally, with someone to unload it. These kinds of details can really transform a hillside. So there's a few fairly big complicated builds there, but they don't have to be big and complicated. You can make something simple, like this stable behind me. It's basically just a lean-to made out of barrels and logs and slabs and steps and fence posts with a few gates and a few horses inside of it because, you know, what's the point of having a stable if you've not got horses? I have leashed these to the fence posts though, so they don't jump around too much. Put them on a main thoroughfare where people are likely to want to get off their horse, and make sure there's plenty of roads around it, because if there's not, well, it won't make sense. The horses have probably kicked this all up, so it's not going to be perfect grass. Next up, add in your crops in and around your bushes. Don't make them necessarily into big fields. Just dot them around to add a little bit of colour to the landscape. The yellow of the wheat really offsets against the grey of the stone, and the green of the bushes. And the orange and green of a melon and pumpkin patch really draws the eye. And again, don't make it standard. Lob a big old rock in the middle of it. That's probably what it's going to be in real life, right? And surround them with flowers and rocks and bushes and grass and all kinds of stuff. Even just by lobbing down a little bit of bone meal onto the floor, it really makes a big difference to bring this sort of area to life. Although there is absolutely nothing wrong with having fields as well. Fields also work, especially if you lob a few scarecrows in there. And make sure any pathways that go through them are not too regular. Make them wiggly. And next up, a really effective thing that can stand out in your world is a custom nether portal. I'm just going to show you one here that's linking up the island to the mainland. I'm really pleased with how this has come out because it's got all sorts of different colours in it and really stands out from the green of the island. It's on its own platform where nether blocks have come through from the other dimension, but it is still edged off in the same way as the rest of the island is. Maybe make your portal just ever so slightly bigger than it has to be. That 3x2 is perfectly fine, but bigger is better in this case. And cover the obsidian up with different types of rock, greys and also other nether blocks as well, such as that brick. It actually doesn't matter if it looks a little bit messy. Messy's good. This thing has sprouted from another dimension. It's not going to be neat and tidy, is it? You can even lob a little bit of lava in. And finally, we've talked about rocks and bushes and docks and bridges and boats and all these kind of structures. But if we want to really make our place look natural, we need to bring in a few trees. And I don't just mean the ones that grow naturally. Custom trees are going to add loads of life to your buildings. Custom oak trees are not too tricky, especially the little ones. If you stick in your trunk, put it as an offset. If you want, stick in some steps and slabs just to give a little bit of root and bend. And also, when you look up, make sure there's some holes you can see the sky. If you can't see the sky through your tree, you've got too many leaves or your leaves are in the wrong position. Make sure you've got plenty of gaps because the gaps are going to make it look more natural. And place spruce trees on your hills. Spruce trees love hills. And all a custom spruce tree needs to be is a vertical pillar of wood, maybe with the odd little bit of fence post coming off of it, and a few bushes, leaves in this case, coming off the sides. They don't need to be too ornate. You can actually leave them quite bedraggled because often spruce trees are growing together like this little group here. And as a result, the trees kind of loan themselves to each other and the leaves start to look much more natural. And from a distance, I really like the effect that gives it. All these details, big and small, come together to create this natural looking landscape with structures scattered all across it, right in the middle of my custom world. So one detail on its own isn't enough, you have to put them all together. Which of these details has caught your imagination? What have I missed out? What didn't I include? Let me know in the comments below. I always really love to hear from you. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video, please do hit that like button. It really helps out the channel and costs you absolutely nothing. And if you've not done it already, maybe consider subscribing. And I'll look forward to seeing you in another video. You take it easy now. Bye.